The moment Karoline Leavitt opened her phone on that Tuesday morning, her world exploded. The White House press secretary, fresh off her victory against Robert De Niro, thought she was untouchable. She was wrong. Breaking. Congresswoman Jasmine. Crockett files $80 million lawsuit against Karoline Leavitt for defamation and civil rights violations. The notification flashed across her screen like a bomb going off. Leavitt's hands started shaking as she read the headline from CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC all at once. This wasn't just any lawsuit. This was an $80 million nuclear weapon aimed directly at her career, her reputation, and everything she'd built. What happened in the next 72 hours would destroy the 27-year-old press secretary in ways she never imagined. The same Gen Z fighter who demolished Hollywood's biggest star was about to face a legal nightmare that would make her De Niro victory look like child's play. Before we dive into this explosive story, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of the drama that's about to unfold. Trust me, you won't want to miss what Jasmine Crockett had planned for Karoline Leavitt. The lawsuit wasn't just about money, it was about justice, accountability, and showing that no one, not even Trump's golden girl, was above the law. What Crockett had discovered would shock the nation and leave Leavitt scrambling to save her career. This is the story of how one tweet, one press briefing, and one massive legal mistake brought down the conservative movement's rising star faster than anyone thought possible. To understand how devastating this lawsuit really was, you need to know who these two women are and why this battle mattered so much. At 27, Karoline Leavitt had become the face of young conservatism in America. As the youngest White House press secretary in history, she'd built her reputation on being fearless, sharp, and absolutely loyal to Trump. Her recent destruction of Robert De Niro on Fox News had made her a conservative icon overnight. Leavitt grew up in New Hampshire in a middle-class Catholic family. She'd worked her way up from college intern to campaign staffer to the most powerful press podium in the world. Her blonde hair, blue suits, and razor-sharp comebacks had made her the perfect spokesperson for Trump's return to power. But Leavitt had a problem. Success had made her cocky. She'd started believing her own hype, thinking she could say anything without consequences. That arrogance was about to cost her everything. On the other side stood Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from Texas, a 43-year-old former civil rights attorney who'd never backed down from a fight. Before entering Congress, Crockett had spent years defending victims of discrimination and winning million-dollar settlements against powerful corporations. Crockett wasn't just another politician. She was a legal shark who knew exactly how to use the courts to destroy her enemies. With her law degree from the University of Houston and years of courtroom experience, she understood something Leavitt didn't. Words have consequences, especially when they come from the White House podium. As one of the few black women in Congress, Crockett had faced constant attacks from conservative media, but she'd also learned how to fight back using the one weapon they couldn't defend against: the by-law. What made this confrontation so explosive was the collision of two different worlds. Leavitt represented the new conservative movement, young, social media savvy, and convinced they could say anything. Crockett represented old-school accountability, experienced, legally trained, and ready to make people pay for their words. The stakes couldn't have been higher. For Leavitt, this lawsuit threatened to destroy her career just as it was taking off. An $80 million judgment would bankrupt her and make her unemployable in politics. For Crockett, this was about proving that no one in the White House was above the law, regardless of their age or popularity. The drama began 3 weeks earlier, during a White House press briefing that would go down in history as one of the most destructive moments in modern political communication. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon, and Leavitt was feeling confident after a string of successful press conferences where she'd dominated hostile reporters. The question came from Sarah Chen, a reporter from the Washington Post who'd been particularly aggressive in her coverage of the administration. Ms. Leavitt, can you comment on Congresswoman Crockett's voting rights legislation and why the administration opposes it? It should have been a routine policy question with a standard political response. Instead, what came out of Leavitt's mouth would ultimately cost her everything. Congresswoman Crockett claims to care about voting rights, Leavitt had said from the podium, her voice dripping with disdain. But she's really just another angry activist who got elected by playing the victim card. Her so-called civil rights work was just ambulance chasing for money. The room went quiet. Even seasoned reporters used to heated political rhetoric seemed shocked by the personal nature of the attack. But Leavitt wasn't finished. Emboldened by what she mistook for approval, she continued her assault. "Let's be honest about what we're dealing with here," she said, leaning into the microphone. "This is someone who built her entire career on grievance politics and racial division. She talks about civil rights, but what has she actually accomplished besides filing lawsuits and collecting checks?" But that wasn't the worst part. Leavitt had then made personal attacks about Crockett's appearance, her background, and even suggested she wasn't qualified to be in Congress. The comments were broadcast live to millions of Americans and immediately went viral on social media. What Leavitt didn't realize was that every word she spoke from that podium could be used against her in court, and Jasmine Crockett had been taking notes. The first sign that Leavitt was in serious trouble came 48 hours after the lawsuit was filed. She'd tried to brush it off during her morning press briefing, calling it a publicity stunt and saying she wasn't worried about frivolous lawsuits from attention-seeking politicians. That was her first mistake. Within hours, Jasmine Crockett was standing in front of the Capitol building with a team of lawyers, holding a press conference that would be watched by millions. She wasn't just angry, she was laser-focused and ready for war. "Ms. Leavitt thinks this is a publicity stunt," Crockett said, her voice steady but filled with controlled fury. "Let me be crystal clear about what this lawsuit contains. We have documented 47 separate instances of defamatory statements made from the White House podium. We have evidence of coordinated attacks on my character, my professional reputation, and my fitness to serve in Congress." She held up a thick stack of papers. "This isn't just about hurt feelings. This is about a pattern of abuse of power, targeted harassment, and civil rights violations that have caused real, measurable damage to my reputation and my ability to serve my constituents." The press conference was devastating. Crockett laid out her case with the precision of the experienced attorney she was. She had receipts, documentation, and a legal strategy that made Leavitt's dismissive comments look incredibly naive. Twitter erupted immediately. Crockett vs. Leavitt started trending within minutes. But this time the momentum was different. Instead of conservatives rallying around Leavitt like they had during the De Niro incident, many were staying quiet. Legal experts began weighing in, and their analysis was terrifying for Leavitt. "This isn't a frivolous lawsuit," tweeted prominent attorney Mark Garagos. "Crockett has a strong case for defamation, and using the White House podium makes it even worse. Leavitt could be in serious trouble." CNN legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin was even more direct. "When you're a government official making personal attacks from an official podium, you lose many of the protections that normal citizens have." Crockett knows exactly what she's doing here. Behind the scenes, the White House was in full crisis mode. Sources inside the administration told reporters that senior staff were furious with Leavitt for creating such a massive legal liability. The president's lawyers were scrambling to figure out whether the administration could be held responsible for her comments. Trump himself was reportedly not happy about the situation. According to insiders, he'd told staff that Leavitt needed to fix this mess or face consequences. The same president who'd praised her De Niro performance was now seeing her as a liability. As the pressure mounted, Leavitt made her second major mistake. Instead of apologizing or backing down, she doubled down during her next press briefing. "I stand by every word I said about Congresswoman Crockett," she declared, her voice shaking slightly. "If she can't handle criticism, maybe she shouldn't be in politics." This lawsuit is exactly what I'd expect from someone who made her career playing victim. The room fell silent. Even conservative reporters looked uncomfortable. One veteran journalist later said it was like watching someone dig their own grave on live television. That evening, Crockett's lawyers released a statement that sent shockwaves through Washington. Ms. Leavitt's comments today will be added to our lawsuit as additional evidence of malicious intent and continuing defamation. We thank her for providing us with even more proof of her pattern of harassment. Legal experts were stunned. She just handed Crockett millions more in damages, said former federal prosecutor Preet Bharara. This is legal malpractice of the highest order. For the first time since becoming press secretary, Leavitt found herself without unified conservative support. While some Trump loyalists continued defending her, others began distancing themselves in ways that shocked political observers. The cracks appeared first on social media, where prominent conservative voices who'd previously championed Leavitt began posting carefully worded statements that avoided defending her directly. Charlie Kirk, who'd previously called her the future of conservatism, posted a carefully worded tweet: "Legal battles distract from the real issues facing America. All parties should focus on serving the people." But the real blow came from unexpected quarters. Megyn Kelly, the former Fox News host who'd become a conservative podcasting powerhouse, devoted an entire episode to discussing the importance of professional boundaries in political communication. Without naming Leavitt directly, her criticism was unmistakable. "When you're representing the American people from that podium," Kelly said, "every word matters. Every attack has consequences. And when those attacks cross the line from policy disagreement to personal destruction, you've lost the moral authority to speak for the country." Even Fox News hosts seemed uncomfortable. Tucker Carlson, usually a fierce defender of the administration, spent an entire segment talking about the importance of careful communication in government roles. The subtext was clear. Leavitt had gone too far, and even her allies couldn't defend her anymore. The most damaging defection came from Senator Ted Cruz, who'd been one of Leavitt's early champions. In a statement that sent shockwaves through conservative circles, Cruz said, "Public servants must be held to the highest standards of conduct. When those standards aren't met, accountability must follow." The situation got worse when audio leaked from a White House strategy meeting. In the recording, Leavitt could be heard saying, "I don't care what some lawyer from Texas thinks. She can sue me all she wants. I'll destroy her in court, just like I destroyed De Niro on TV." The leak was devastating because it showed Leavitt still didn't understand the seriousness of her situation. She was treating a federal lawsuit like a cable news debate. When reporters asked about the leaked audio during her next briefing, Leavitt's response was telling. "I don't comment on private conversations that may or may not have been recorded illegally. The damage was done." Her own words were being used against her, and she had no good options left. The moment that destroyed Karoline Leavitt came exactly 1 week after the lawsuit was filed. It wasn't a dramatic courtroom scene or a heated press conference. It was something much more devastating. A simple document filing that exposed just how much trouble she was really in. On Monday morning, Jasmine Crockett's legal team filed a motion for expedited discovery that would become the most talked-about legal document in Washington. The 47-page filing didn't just ask for damages, it systematically dismantled Leavitt's entire defense strategy. The motion revealed that Crockett's team had been building their case for months, long before the lawsuit was announced. They had emails, text messages, social media posts, and even internal White House communications that showed a coordinated pattern of harassment against Crockett. But the most devastating revelation was buried on page 23 of the filing. Evidence that Leavitt had been working with outside conservative groups to spread false information about Crockett's background and qualifications. The smoking gun was an email Leavitt had sent to a conservative blogger 3 months earlier. In it, she wrote, "We need to destroy Crockett's credibility before she becomes a bigger problem. I don't care what it takes. Find dirt, make stuff up if you have to. She's too dangerous to let her keep gaining influence. When that email became public through the court filing, the political world exploded. This wasn't just defamation anymore. It was evidence of a coordinated conspiracy to destroy a sitting member of Congress using false information. 2 hours after the discovery motion was filed, Crockett held another press conference. This time, she wasn't just angry, she was prosecutorial. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, holding up the court documents. "What you're about to hear isn't just about personal attacks or hurt feelings. This is about a White House official conspiring to spread lies about a member of Congress using the resources and authority of her office." She read portions of Leavitt's email aloud, her voice getting stronger with each damning sentence. "Make stuff up if you have to." Let that sink in. The White House press secretary, speaking for the President of the United States, telling someone to make up lies about a congresswoman. The room was dead silent. Even reporters who usually defended the administration looked shocked. "This isn't politics," Crockett continued. "This is corruption. This is abuse of power. And this is exactly why we have laws protecting citizens from government officials who think they can destroy anyone who opposes them." Within hours, the White House was in complete chaos. Senior staff were spotted carrying boxes out of the building. Emergency meetings were being held every hour. And most tellingly, no one was defending Leavitt anymore. The President's Chief of Staff released a brief statement. "The White House is reviewing all aspects of this situation and will respond appropriately." It was the kind of corporate speak that meant someone was about to be thrown under the bus. The most shocking development was watching conservative media turn on their former golden girl. Fox News, which had celebrated her De Niro victory just weeks earlier, now barely mentioned her name. Sean Hannity, who'd hosted the debate that made her famous, addressed the situation with obvious discomfort. "If these allegations are true, and I emphasize if, then this represents a serious breach of trust and professional standards." Even Breitbart, usually a fierce defender of Trump administration officials, ran a headline that said it all. "Leavitt email scandal, when politics goes too far." Legal analysts were unanimous in their assessment. Leavitt was finished. The email evidence was so damaging that no amount of spin could save her. "This isn't just defamation anymore," explained former prosecutor Joyce Vance. "You've got conspiracy, abuse of office, and potentially criminal violations of civil rights laws. Leavitt needs a criminal defense attorney, not a PR team." Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe was even more direct. "I've been practicing law for 50 years, and I've rarely seen a case where someone provided this much evidence of their own wrongdoing. It's like she gift-wrapped a conviction for the prosecution." As news of the email spread, social media exploded with reactions. The Leavitt emails started trending worldwide, with millions of people sharing their shock at the revelations. The most viral tweet came from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. "This is what corruption looks like." A government official using her position to coordinate lies about a colleague. The American people deserve better. Even some Trump supporters were backing away. A prominent MAGA influencer with 2 million followers posted, "I supported Karoline, but if this email is real, she crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. This isn't conservative politics. This is just wrong." The final nail in Leavitt's coffin was her response to the email revelation. Instead of apologizing or showing remorse, she tried to defend the indefensible during what would be her last press briefing. "That email was taken out of context," she claimed, her voice shaking. "I was speaking in general terms about political opposition research, not asking anyone to make up false information." The explanation was so obviously false that even friendly reporters couldn't help her. One conservative journalist asked, "Ms. Leavitt, how is make stuff up if you have to taken out of context?" Her response will go down in political history. "I think the American people can read that email and decide for themselves what I meant." It was over. She'd just asked the American people to excuse her telling someone to fabricate lies about a congresswoman. Even her most loyal supporters couldn't defend that. By Friday afternoon, Less than a week after the discovery motion was filed, Karoline Leavitt submitted her resignation as White House press secretary. The letter, leaked to the FI press within hours, was a masterpiece of non-apology apologies and blame shifting. While I strongly disagree with the characterization of my communications, the letter read, I believe it's in the best interest of the administration for me to step down so this matter doesn't distract from the important work of serving the American people. She never admitted wrongdoing. She never apologized to Crockett. She just walked away, leaving behind a career in ruins and a lawsuit that would follow her for years. That evening, Jasmine Crockett stood once again in front of the Capitol, but this time she wasn't angry. She was vindicated. Today, we proved that no one is above the law, she said simply. Not the youngest press secretary in history, not the most popular conservative star, and not anyone who thinks they can use the power of government to destroy their political opponents. She paused, looking directly into the cameras. Ms. Leavitt's resignation doesn't end this lawsuit. She still has to face the consequences of her actions. But today sends a clear message. If you abuse your power, you will be held accountable. The 27-year-old who dominated Hollywood's biggest star had been completely destroyed by a 43-year-old congresswoman who simply knew how to use the law. It wasn't even close. The resignation of Karoline Leavitt sent shockwaves through American politics that are still being felt today. What happened in the days and weeks after her fall from grace revealed just how complete her destruction really was. Within 24 hours of Leavitt's resignation, the political landscape had completely shifted. The conservative movement, which had hailed her as their Gen Z savior just weeks earlier, was now scrambling to distance themselves from the scandal. Trump himself, who'd tweeted, "very proud" after her De Niro victory, remained conspicuously silent about her resignation. Sources close to the former president revealed that he was furious about the situation and felt that Leavitt had embarrassed the administration with rookie mistakes. The White House moved quickly to replace her, appointing a seasoned communications veteran who immediately promised a return to professional standards and appropriate conduct. The implicit criticism of Leavitt couldn't have been clearer. Despite her resignation, Leavitt's legal troubles were just beginning. Jasmine Crockett's $80 million lawsuit moved forward, and now Leavitt faced it without the resources and legal protection of the White House. Her personal attorneys filed motion after motion trying to get the case dismissed, but federal judge Sarah Williams rejected every attempt. In one particularly stinging ruling, Judge Williams wrote, "The defendant's position that her statements were protected political speech is undermined by her own written communications, encouraging the fabrication of false information." Legal experts predicted that Leavitt would eventually be forced to settle for tens of millions of dollars, potentially bankrupting her for life. "She's looking at a judgment that could destroy her financially for decades," said bankruptcy attorney David Schultz. This is what happens when political ambition overwhelms basic legal common sense. The hashtag #Leavitt destroyed dominated social media for weeks, with millions of people sharing memes, reaction videos, and analysis of her spectacular fall. The contrast with her earlier Leavitt freezes Diro victory was stark and humiliating. The most viral content came from her own words being used against her. Clips of her calling the lawsuit a publicity stunt were paired with news of her resignation, creating powerful before and after videos that accumulated millions of views. TikTok creators had a field day with the story, creating elaborate videos, explaining how the youngest press secretary became the biggest cautionary tale in politics. One video, viewed over 50 million times, simply showed Leavitt's confident press briefings playing alongside courtroom audio of the damaging evidence against her. The Leavitt scandal forced conservative media to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their rush to celebrate her had blinded them to obvious warning signs. Several prominent hosts and commentators publicly admitted they'd made mistakes. Tucker Carlson devoted an entire segment to the dangers of elevating political figures too quickly without proper vetting. Without mentioning Leavitt by name, his message was clear. The conservative movement needed to be more careful about its heroes. Ben Shapiro was more direct. We got caught up in the excitement of seeing a young conservative take on Hollywood. Elites, but we ignored red flags about judgment and temperament. That's on us as much as it's on her. While Leavitt's career imploded, Jasmine Crockett emerged as a national political star. Her methodical destruction of a White House official made her a hero to Democrats and earned grudging respect from many Republicans. Speaking requests poured in from universities, legal organizations, and political groups. Publishers offered book deals. Cable news networks competed to hire her as a legal commentator. Within months, Crockett had transformed from a relatively unknown congresswoman into one of the most recognizable political figures in America. She showed that you don't need to be the loudest voice in the room to be the most effective, wrote Washington Post columnist Jennifer Rubin. Sometimes, quiet competence beats flashy rhetoric every time. The Leavitt-Crockett saga became a watershed moment in American politics, highlighting the growing tensions between traditional institutional respect and social media-driven political combat. Political scientists began studying the case as an example of how political careers could be destroyed faster than ever in the digital age. 20 years ago, this kind of scandal might have played out over months or years, explained Georgetown professor Dr. Sarah Martinez. Now, careers can end in a matter of days. The case also demonstrated the power of legal expertise in political combat. Unlike the theater of cable news debates, courtrooms required evidence, documentation, and professional competence. Areas where Crockett's legal background gave her an overwhelming advantage. For Karoline Leavitt personally, the fall was devastating beyond anything political observers had ever witnessed. Friends and former colleagues described her as completely broken by the experience, a shadow of the confident young woman who dominated cable news just months earlier. The psychological impact became evident during what would be her final week in the White House. Staff members reported that she'd stopped eating regularly, was drinking multiple energy drinks to stay awake, and had been seen crying in her office after particularly brutal news cycles. Her family tried to provide support, but the constant media attention made even that difficult. Photographers camped outside her parents' New Hampshire home, forcing them to hire private security. Her younger sister had to change schools after facing harassment from classmates who'd seen the viral videos of Karoline's destruction. She went from thinking she was untouchable to realizing she'd destroyed her own career in a matter of weeks, said one former White House colleague who spoke on condition of anonymity. It's been a complete psychological collapse. She keeps asking how this happened so fast, like she genuinely doesn't understand that actions have consequences. The 27-year-old who'd seemed destined for a long political career now faced financial ruin and professional exile. But perhaps most painful of all was the realization that she'd done it all to herself. Every damaging email, every arrogant press conference response, every decision to escalate rather than apologize, it had all been her choice. As legal experts had predicted, the financial impact on Leavitt was catastrophic. Her legal fees alone exceeded $2 million in the first 6 months after her resignation. With her government salary gone and no prospects for high-paying private sector work, she was forced to sell her Washington apartment and move back in with her parents. The $80 million lawsuit loomed over everything. Even if she managed to settle for a fraction of that amount, any judgment in the tens of millions would ensure she'd never recover financially. Bankruptcy lawyers began circling, preparing for what many saw as an inevitable filing. The Leavitt case became required study material in political communication courses across the country. Her mistakes were so obvious and so devastating that professors used her as the perfect example of how not to handle political opposition. Never put anything in writing that you wouldn't want read in court, became a common refrain. Never use government resources for personal political vendettas, and never ever underestimate a lawyer who knows what they're doing. As this story continues to unfold, the lawsuit remains active and could go to trial within the next year. Legal observers expect it to set precedents for how government officials can be held accountable for abusing their positions. Crockett's legal team has indicated they're not interested in settling for anything less than full accountability. This case is about more than money, said lead attorney Maria Rodriguez. It's about showing that American democracy has safeguards against abuse of power, even when that abuse comes from the highest levels of government. Perhaps the most striking aspect of the entire saga is how completely it reversed the narratives of both women involved. Leavitt, who'd built her career on being fearless and unbeatable, was destroyed by her own overconfidence and poor judgment. Crockett, who'd been dismissed as just another angry activist, proved to be a methodical, brilliant strategist who understood power better than her much younger opponent. It's like watching David and Goliath, observed political commentator Van Jones. Except David had a law degree, and Goliath forgot to wear armor. The Leavitt-Crockett case has already changed how political figures approach conflict and communication. Government officials are being much more careful about their public statements, knowing that legal consequences can follow political rhetoric. For young political figures especially, the case serves as a sobering reminder that social media success doesn't translate to real-world invincibility. As one former Republican strategist put it, Karoline Leavitt thought politics was like cable news, where you win by being loudest. Jasmine Crockett showed her that sometimes politics is like court, where you win by being right. The question now is whether other political figures will learn from Leavitt's mistakes, or whether the temptation of viral moments and social media fame will lead to similar spectacular failures. In the end, the destruction of Karoline Leavitt serves as a powerful reminder that in American democracy, no one is truly above the law. Her fall from conservative hero to cautionary tale happened with breathtaking speed, proving that political careers built on controversy and conflict can collapse just as quickly as they rise. For Jasmine Crockett, the victory was complete but bittersweet. She'd proven her point about accountability and abuse of power, but the cost to American political discourse was significant. "I didn't want to destroy anyone's career," she said in a recent interview. "I just wanted to show that actions have consequences." Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss the latest political drama. The world of politics moves fast, and there's always another shocking story just around the corner. What do you think about Karoline Leavitt's spectacular fall? Was justice served, or did things go too far? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next explosive political showdown. The tale of how a 27-year-old press secretary's arrogance led to her complete destruction will be studied for years to come. It's a story about power, accountability, and the price of believing your own hype in the unforgiving world of American politics.